As most people know in the Zig community, as most people in the Zig community know by now, Megan and Matt have been trying their hand at writing their own package managers for Zig. In the past, we had Matt talk about his implementation, while today we have Megan showcase hers. I think the best way of introducing Megan is by saying that she started programming for one of the noblest possible reasons, which is to write Minecraft modes. The talk is titled Thoughts on Robust Package Management with Zigmod and Aquila. Megan, the stream is yours.
Thank you, Lars. Yeah, so historically, being a developer and a maintainer have been kind of two different roles because they're both like very difficult. And so I made Zigmod and Aquila as kind of prototypes to see to try out some experimentation on what we can do to bridge that gap. So just as a quick disclaimer, I wanted to say that this is an experiment. Zig plans on building a package manager directly into the Zig build system. So the main takeaway here is kind of the underlying philosophy, but the software is available right now. I also have a registry app that I'm going to be showcasing that may exist, but we'll see. Once Zig adds official package management support, it will be updated to work with that. At the moment, it's very tied to Zigmod, the registry being Aquila. Yeah, so for the talk, I'm going to go over the package manager, which for my case is Zigmod, and then I have a registry called Aquila. So package managers. Ooh. So I wanted to go over some things that we should get right because people have a lot of gripes with other package managers. So before we do that, let's go over what are our goals. So for part of the philosophy that I approached was be declarative. So the actual manifest format that you define a package with is entirely declarative. It's not Zig code because I didn't want like dependencies to run code while they're on the machine or like on the developer's machine, like while you're fetching dependencies and stuff, because you're on the developer's machine. That's a very sensitive piece of real estate, and you kind of don't really want to trust dependencies until they actually make it into the end program. Uh, Also, another big thing was be specific. So looking at a lot of other package kind of manifest formats, this is along the same lines. They're very tied to like a central registry, or actually not even, they usually just have a name and like, I want this package, I want this package, and I want this package. There's no, there's like some complex algorithm in the background that not everybody knows on like how, on where those names are associated to like files on a server. So another big thing here was be specific. Um, so you're not like, oh, is it going to this registry? Is it going to a private registry? Um, yeah. Also avoid the network as much as possible. This is like for when you're fetching dependencies because it's slow and unreliable. So when your dependency definitions are done in a mutable way, you can kind of only fetch what you absolutely need, which makes the fetching process a lot faster. And then I said for examples here, using like specific versions, git tags, hashes for tarballs, and more. Another big thing I tried to do was keeping debugging easy as possible. So when you do fetch dependencies, it saves them in a folder relative or based on the path that they're stored. So that way, if say you have a stack trace and you get an error about something, if it went through a dependency or it's in the dependency itself, you know exactly right away where it's coming from. And then this was for Zigmod, but integrate with the Zig build system well. Um, so what Zigmod does is it generates a deps.zig that you import into your build.zig, and then there's some helper functions and there's some other intricate things you can do with it, and then it makes Zig build have the same experience for everyone, regardless on whether they're doing it manually or they're using Zigmod. And then be decentralized was a big thing that Andrew and team also like said that they wanted, and Zigmod kind of follows that. So it supports Git, Mercurial, HTTP tarballs. There's going to be support for like sub packages. You can get data from any host or URL. It's not tied to like all three of those remote types are not tied to like a specific um, yeah, there's no single source of truth. And the base program, although there is integration for the registry, the base like fetching program has no concept of what a registry is. It only sees tarballs as like from a web server. And then, so for some specific examples, this is how Zigmod allows you to use these today. So there's Zigmod init after you initialize your project. It will generate a zig.mod file, which is going to be your manifest format, based on some properties in your project. So there's this ID. Actually, we'll get there. So the zig.mod manifest format. So there's an ID. This is kind of a new thing based on some comments I saw in the package manager issue on GitHub. So this is used to uniquely identify your package coming from any sources. So say you initially start your project on GitHub, but then you end up moving it over to GitLab, or you move it even within GitHub, you move it into an organization or you change the name. So this ID values allows Zigmod and the package manager to recognize that they represent the same package. So if you have, say, one dependency that imports it under this name, and then you have another dependency that links it from, GitLab, it can recognize that they're actually the same package, and then use that when it's to prevent name conflicts and stuff like that. There's the name, which is what you put into the @import string. There's main. This is actually optional. So if you define it, it becomes the Zig entry point for your package. But Zigmod also has support for like defining C libraries or defining like having C code in your package. So if your package is just providing a bunch of C code to, the parent project, you don't actually have to define main. And then there's also dependencies and dev dependencies. This is a little different from how like package.json will work with Node. So dependencies are made available to the library. So made available to import main. And then so dev dependencies are for if you're building like an actual like end user application. And then so that makes them available to root. And then main will become also available to root. And then there's a lot more fields, as I mentioned, with like the C code and some other stuff you can do. Zigmod fetch, this is like the main thing you'll be doing when interfacing with Zigmod. It'll read your zig.mod manifest, download all of your dependencies recursively, and then put them into deps.zig and a local folder. There's deps.zig, which is generated by, oh, that's wrong. So this is generated by Zigmod fetch, and then it's used in build.zig. There's a nice handy helper function. So you can import deps and then add all to, and then just put in an exe or a lib, and then you're good to go. It'll add like all of the C code that was imported, all of the packages, and it'll do it all of it for you. And then there's also a reference. So those are like the main kind of core loop, I guess, of Zigmod. And then there's also some helper functions that I wanted to go over really quickly. I showed this off in a previous Showtime. There's Zigmod license. So one of the optional fields in zig.mod is a license field. And then so this, because Zigmod has like a view on your entire dependency tree, it can list every single dependency and group them by license. Another thing that's shown here is if the licenses being used in a project are like a standard like OSI identifier code, SPDX identifier code, it'll also insert a link to the license. So you can read the text and see if it's compatible with the different things that you're using and whatnot. There's Zigmod Sum, so you can this can be incorporated later. This isn't used directly at the moment, but you can also like run this file multiple times and then track changes. And it'll show you the Blake 3 hash of all of your dependencies. There's Zigmod ZPM. So there's native integration with Zig.pm, which is a registry bookmark website for awesome Zig projects by Master Q32, also known as XQ. And then there's some subcommands for searching, adding projects, and then also seeing the different tags. And then there's Zigmod AQ, which is the native integration with Aquila, which is the registry that I'm going to show off in a second. And then there's like add and update. So now we have registries. So with registries, versioning is hard. No one does semantic versioning right, or like almost no one. It complicates a lot, and a lot people mess it up all the time. Being a maintainer is hard. Keeping dependencies up to date is very tiresome, and making sure updates. Part of why it's tiresome is because like making sure updates don't break your code is a lot of work. And then being a developer is hard. We have hard jobs. Making sure things are secure is hard. Making sure like dependencies that you want to add aren't malicious is hard. Tracking changes and stability in the dependencies that you add is hard. So Aquila, the registry that I am working on, has a couple proposed solutions for a few of these problems. And then it's available right now at this website. And then, yeah, this is very new. It's a very recent project of mine. So there's a lot of planned features that I have not quite implemented yet, but it is usable. There's just much more to come. So for versioning, Aquila doesn't use semantic. It gets rid of the third version and just has major and revision. Major is for breaking changes, and then revision is for non-breaking changes. If you want to have like a full rewrite, best case scenario, that should honestly go in like a whole new project. And then part of that confusion with versioning is like, what is a breaking or non-breaking change? So if you are only expanding your API surface or have non-breaking bug fixes, that's a minor version. If you add or if you remove public functions or constants, that's a big breaking change. Or this pertains a lot to Zig. If the error surface of one of your functions changes, that's also a breaking change. So being a maintainer is hard. Part of why is because checking for version updates is kind of this polling process. Like you constantly have to wonder, like, do my dependencies have updates? Do my dependencies have updates? Instead of, I went with this interrupt-based one. So I thought a really kind of simple-ish fix to that is you can just kind of get notifications on the website when people hit publish on a new version. And then down the line, I also want to have like a CI feature. So if your project, whether it's a library or a like end application, defines tests, it can run them for you, and then in like a dependent pod kind of style, be like, hey, here's a new version. We already ran your tests. We know it works. Or on the opposite side, we can be like, hey, we updated with this new version and something broke. So then, you can go back and figure out, well, did dependency break something? And, or, did I do something? Instead of like constantly having to wonder, like, are updates out there? And then, yeah, so, the site can just give you notifications for, oh, so this part was actually about the security point. So another thing I thought was like, oh, so if there's one maintainer on a project and then a new version gets published by a new maintainer that you didn't get told about, it can actually tell you like, hey, this new version came out and it's by someone. This is the first version that they've approved on this project. Maybe you should take an extra care to look at the changes. Um, and then this one is actually already implemented. So when you're looking at the version page or versions page for a project or a library, it can actually show you the code diff between the different versions. So you know exactly, the commits that were made and the code that changed. And then obviously, you can see how many like download statistics or like how often the package is updated, because it'll show you like when the published date. And Aquila is also self-hostable, and the plan is for it to be federated and the CI features to work across like all instances. So I host the Aquila.red site, but then say you go to host your own, if you depend on a package on your own registry from a package that's say on Aquila.red, Aquila.red should send you the it should still work, and the update notifications are still going to work across instances. Um, yeah, so just some quick closing thoughts. Zig's kind of tagline is that, it's a general purpose programming language and toolchain for maintaining robust, optimal, and reusable software. Everything in that sentence except for general purpose programming language applies to how we solve package management. And another thing was another thing that, I kind of took with the philosophy of this is that the most efficient, secure way should be the simplest way. So, making your job easier goes a long way. And then yeah, there's still a lot of improvement, and but they're good for now. Yeah, so these are the GitHub projects and the websites, and thanks for listening to my talk.
Thank you very much, Megan. Okay, let's switch to the Q&A view. Okay, so first of all, if anybody has questions, as usual, feel free to write them down. In the meantime, standard question for you two. So how did you discover Zig, and how long ago was that?
So I discovered Zig right around towards the end of the 0.6 timeline. So it was like a month or two before 0.7 came out. I had always been interested in this kind of like C alternative and language design in general. And then YouTube eventually recommended me one of Andrew's talks, The Road to Zig 1.0. And then I watched that and I was like, oh, this looks neat. And the more I watched it, I was just sold like right then and there. And then I was like, I joined the Discord, I found the GitHub, and it's been wonderful ever since.
Awesome. Okay, so
I can also show a quick demo as well
yeah.
if people are still bringing in questions.
Yep, bring it up if you want.
Cool. So for first things first, an example for Zigmod, so this is a packet. This is a project I have called Discord Archiver, which you can use to archive a Discord server. And here we have a Zigmod file. As you can see, it has the ID. This is auto-generated for you. And then you have the name. You can also have like a license and a description. Those are some of the other optional fields. And then these are other dependencies that I added. So these are some of my projects. This is a wonderful HTTP library by TrueMedian, also known as Nameless. And then these are Git projects. So this is with everything deleted. This is almost exactly like what you'll get from just a Git clone. So we have Zigmod fetch. So this will save all of our dependencies automatically right in this Zigmod.zigmod folder, and then also generate the deps.zig file that we need. Excuse me. And then we have Zig build. Very nice, super quick. And then I have this little test script that I wrote. then it's off to the races. Cool. So yeah, Zigmod. Nice and easy. And then this is the website so far. So you'll have like a list of these are new packages. So as a quick example, we have, this one has some versions. So you can see, so for a package, you have the owner, you have the like host project on GitHub. This particular one is a list of all the TLDs for domains. You can see the different versions, when they were published, the source like at that particular commit where the file is being stored. And then also this is that diff compare. So you can see between 0.2 and 0.1, nationwide, the dot nationwide and dot on your side top level domain names were removed. And then if you go to click on one, you can see a file list for like all of the files in that package. Any dependencies that they may or may not have. This one doesn't have any because it's just a static string array. And then also how big it is and the hash.
Have you been enjoying writing the Aquila website?
Yeah, that's been fun.
Well, I'm asking because, like, I know that you told me that you do have some web programming experience, but like, there's a lot of people around here that like, kind of, they don't super enjoy it. Well, I agree with you. I had a lot of fun writing the, for example, the Zig website redesign. So yeah, okay, cool to know. So there's a question by Andrew. What is one especially tricky thing that you run into when working on Zigmod, and what would you want to? Okay. So it's a long question. So let's start with what is one especially tricky thing that you run into when working on Zigmod?
What's an especially tricky thing I ran into while working on Zigmod?
Yeah.
Oh, I think.
Okay, now I decoded the second half of the question. Sorry, Andrew. That's on me. So, and the second half of the question is, well, and if you wanted to warn somebody else about this tricky thing, maybe somebody else that is thinking of writing a upstream package manager, I don't know, somebody like Andrew, for example, what would you want to warn them of?
There's one feature that I saw there was rumors about getting deleted that kind of, I guess, breaks a lot of things, or I didn't know how it would get fixed. So there was one issue that I saw where they wanted to make it so at import only accepts the string literals. The reason I thought that was a little problematic is because so you can have like in deps.zig, there's packages. Oh, okay. So there's this packages that are referenced by name. And then these correlate to their packages in here. So if say one of the packages in here was, something about, say I was writing a C program and I had a Zig project that could look at the exe and then auto-generate, like, say, a header file. I think Zig can do that automatically, but like just for the sake of example, if it was like a dependency. If you wanted to do that, you could do, say, like equals import steps packages, JSON.path. But there was a proposal to have that removed. The kind of, yeah, it leads to the question of like how do you get dependencies for build.zig when it's the method by which things get dependencies through like add package and stuff. That was one. Um, D was a big thing. Um, because oh, and then also like it wasn't necessarily technically difficult, but like the fact that it's such a social thing makes it difficult. I guess I would say. And getting people steering like steering people in the right direction um makes it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another question. This one is from Power of Zero. What are the provisions for packaging non-trivial C projects for Zigmod packages?
Um, so I can show you how you add C code.
Mhm.
If they could elaborate a little bit on what they mean by non-trivial.
Well, I'm guessing like a project where maybe there are some constants that you have to define that has some dependency on system libraries.
Okay. Yeah, so for just C code, here's an example of a wrapper package I made for Z Standard, which is a project by Facebook.
Mhm.
So some of the other optional properties are the C includers attribute, and then that's just a list. There's C source files, which is just a list. And then
Uh,
it's not listed here,
One sec,
but
because I think we lost a frame from the video streaming in the worst possible moment. Give me half a second. Can I? Oh, can I refresh this page? Is it going to work? Can I click refresh? No. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Please continue.
no worries. Plug in my laptop real quick. Yeah, so we have the C includers attribute,
Mhm.
which is just a list here. Whatever your project happens to need. And then we also have C source files, which is just a list. And then it's not listed here, but there's also a C source flags attribute. Um, for system libraries, that's actually its own unique like dependency type. So you can go system lib and then say GL, and that's how you'd make a game.
Okay. I think that's a good answer. If Power Zero has a follow-up question, then I'm guessing we'll see it soon. Uh, 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 so let's see. People are chatting about your comments on how to do import stuff. Matt is pointing out that SDL2 is a major pain in the ass, apparently. Okay. So I'm guessing the package manager as we said we're gonna end up with a package manager like an official one in the compiler itself. But
Oh,
we don't have plans to have a official um, package index, right? We want to have the community come up with their own stuff. So you mentioned some projects that you want to implement in the future, some of which are like CI stuff. Probably it would take, I'm imagining, a while before you get there. Is there any other like super long term plan that you would like to have one day? Like I'm not asking you to promise stuff that that you will have to follow through, but like if you had infinite time, what is a super cool thing that you think you would want to have in the future?
there's a lot. Not, I mean, That came out wrong. I'm not sure.
You're not sure. It's okay. It's okay. So you said that you want it to be federated and have also a federated notification system. I think nothing like this exists for any other package index that I know of.
Yeah, there's a lot of centralization in projects in
Yeah.
general, because there's, I think that there would be some sort of centralization kind of naturally because people would gravitate towards an instance that has the funds and resources to host an instance, say for the community. And that might be, a couple different people, whether that be like one website or, two or three. But I also like wanted to have the option to like, if say people wanted to host a personal one for just their projects on their own infrastructure, and not make it so that that's like a miserable experience, and still like allow them to incorporate with the rest of the ecosystem. Going back, one currently unsolved problem is say you have uh, SQL 3 as like a system library, and then you have, you know, so say you have these two projects. This one links against a system library, and this one builds from source. There's currently no way to like let the user pick which one they want and kind of have like an optional, like, oh, do you want to link the system library or do you want to build from source? So that would be like a good problem to solve. One thing I think Matt brought up that's might help with a project like SDL2, is, say you have, Git something. If say, this is Marler's Windows project, but you're building like a Windows application, you can say only OS Windows. And then so when someone is running, say, Zigmod fetch, this will only add the dependency into the tree if the like the host target is Windows.
Mm-hmm.
You can also say like except OS, and then this will run on everything except Windows.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think that you coincidentally just answered another question that came up in the meantime. Awesome. Yeah, okay, that's cool. I'm actually curious to see a package index that is decentralized, and I think there's a lot of cool things. Your idea of having the notification system propagate these notifications across different instances caught me by surprise. I wasn't thinking of that, and yeah, it's a cool thing. I guess the thing is, some of the current package indexes do allow you to self-host, but the idea is that you're only self-hosting to have like a private index, private repository, like in your company, your organization, where you don't want to have anything to do with the rest of the world. So yeah, that's a curious direction that I'm sure we'll have. It's an interesting design space to explore, I'm guessing. Okay, I think we are good with the questions and everything else. Is there anything else that you want to say before we move to the end of the show?
Thanks for having me on and doing Showtime. You're a great asset to the community and you do a great job.
Thank you very much. Well, likewise, I think a lot of people have been enjoying Zigmod and interacting with you in the communities. So with that, and also 3 talks, Showtime t-shirt, so don't forget.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
Oh,
I'll definitely be back. This was a lot of fun.
awesome. Yeah. By the way, I don't remember. Did you share your social media stuff at the end?
Yeah, I have these down the bottom. I'm on GitHub, Twitter, and
Oh,
then
yeah,
I
right.
also occasionally stream.
Cool, cool. Right. I have a small preview window, so I couldn't make them out. Okay, perfect. With this, then, I think we can finally get to the end of the show.